Noble Drew Ali. This is a man that every brother and sister who is conscious should know something about. Noble Drew Ali also met a Muslim.
Yes, teaching that.
And Noble Drew Ali started to teach black people in America Islam. He wrote a little book that he called the Quran. It was not the Quran revealed by Allah to Prophet Muhammad, but it was accepted from this divine book with an understanding that fit the need of the people at that time. Now, Noble Drew Ali's movement began to flourish in America, so much so that the government was deathly afraid, because he knows the penetrating effect of Islam. He knows, as one writer says, Islam feeds the warlike propensities of the black man. Islam is a religion, as it is called, but it is not a religion. It is the nature of God and the nature in which he created life. Islam is an ordered, disciplined way of life. And no black man, yesterday or today, can be successful if our life is not ordered by principle and if there is no discipline seen in our community.
That's right.
Now, when black people become ordered, when black people become disciplined, Caucasian people fear.
That's right.
Because a disciplined, ordered people suggests organization. And when black people are organized, not that your religion is an organized religion, but if it is any religion at all, it will organize people.
That's right. That's right.
Now, Noble Drew Ali, Sheikh Sharif Abdul Ali, established the Moorish Divine and National Movement in North America, really around 1911, 1912, and officially active 1913. A lot of preliminary work was going on before the movement was initially, or what you call officially, established. So whereas people look at it as the movement starting in 1913, that's the official date of what you say official activity. But the business was going on for quite some time. One of the things I want you to pay attention to, and we're not going to go over all those points today, but I want you to look into for yourself, because that's not the subject matter, but I want to throw this out there. Look at the timeline. When Drew Ali established the Moorish Divine National Movement in 1913, all right, on the other side of the government, they met and they established the Internal Revenue Service, Federal Reserve System. Now, when Drew Ali was doing his work and about to establish this movement officially, Woodrow Wilson had got his degree at Johns Hopkins University, his PhD, and he was being, at that time, courted for the election to the presidency of the United States Republic. Now, during the Wilson administration, to counter Noble Drew Ali, and you must really understand this so you can understand a lot of activities that are going on with a lot of different groups. The point of this mission is the enforcement of our Constitution. Most people's misunderstanding is thinking that the Constitution for the Republic, United States, North America, was established by the European sons or the knights. Not true. The number is 35 and 20. 35 Moors, 20 European sons, in agreement to stop centuries and centuries of wars between the Moors and the Roman nations. And when we say the Roman nations means the European nations collectively, not just Rome the city. Now, we've had wars since the Punic Wars on up to the Battle of the Crusades, right on up to the Battle of Poitiers near Tours, France, right on up to the French Revolution and the North American, which they say the American Revolution, but it's North American Revolution. They're all tied together. If you don't know that now. It is the longest revolution in the world. You fell, that's how you became niggers. That's where your slavery really came from. Fact is, that part of history is not taught to separate you from your authority, your self-authority, the empire of the world, and particularly the Moroccan Empire in which you're standing right now.
All right, what most people don't realize is this. Some people speak about the temples, you know, within the Moorish Divine National Movement. You got some people that treat Noble Drew Ali as if he's God and not just a messenger or a prophet, you know, versus his message, what he brought to the people. For example, message to America, you know, plea to the nation, a divine warning. You understand? So my point of where I'm getting to right now is you got to understand his message from his literature. And the only way you can truly understand what Prophet Noble Drew Ali meant is to go to his literature. Mainly the divine warning, message to America, plea to the nation, religious controversy. Alright? Now, nowadays it's kind of am I in a temple? Am I in a temple? No, I'm not in a temple. Have I tried to get in temples? Yes. Am I in a temple now or currently trying to get in a temple? No. All right. The reason is because for several years, I've tried to get with temples, and the people are very nasty in some temples. Like the attitudes and the way they approach certain things. All right. Me being studious, I know what Prophet Noble Drew Ali wanted us to do. I know he wanted us to live on the 5 principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And a lot of these temples that's like the first thing. You don't see the love. You don't even see the love in a lot of the temples. And I'm not knocking every temple, because there are some temples that are ran by certain sheiks that are proper. But my reason is this, to get on this subject, is the temples have been infiltrated. All right, they have been infiltrated, and nowadays when they infiltrate, they use people that are close to you to get certain information so they can counter the movement. That's what people don't realize. People don't realize this. All right, they don't realize this. When they used to kidnap me, the state, when they used to harass me and kidnap me, they used to do all sorts of profiles on me. All right. They used to bring in the gang unit. and try to intimidate me that way, even though the people really show high respect towards me when interrogating me. They show high respect. They treated me nicely. They really respected me. But they brought out the gang unit to indirectly get at me mentally. All right. They would bring me in and out of the courts like all times of the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. Let's get them to court. They'll be rushing real fast. Come on, get up. You know, just a lot of mental bullshit. All right. But before I get into how the temples were infiltrated, let's go into something I really never speak about. Years ago, I think it was 2012. I think this was the last time I was locked up, you know, like dealing with the state of Tennessee. I think this was the last time I was locked up. And I can remember during that week of being locked up, my last week of being locked up, the so-called FBI came through like 3 times that week and brought me out of my cell and brought me to this very nice luxury house directly across the street where they did business. And they would take the handcuffs off of me. They had a nice couch I could lay down. It was cool in there. The temperature was cool. They offered me food, which I didn't take. They offered me, you know, sodas, all types of stuff, things that I wouldn't really having inside of the prison. So it was 2 European guys. I'll never forget it. They brought me in, and what they were trying to do is to get me to accept the charges, but they knew that I was not accepting the charges because I was standing on what Noble Drew Ali taught us to enforce, the American Constitution. Okay? I knew they were recording me, even though I didn't see anything out, but I knew they were recording me, so the way I spoke to them was me speaking directly to the magistrate because I knew that they were trying to infiltrate some type of way through me. All right. So since they saw that I couldn't or I wouldn't accept the charges, they got off the subject of the charges. They started asking me all sorts of questions like, again, the so-called FBI. They started asking me all sorts of questions like, do Moorish men, are you in a harem? Do you deal with harems? Where do you guys study? Like, how do you meet up? Like, what is your spiritual background? And I utilized that time to speak to them intelligently, under an intelligent tone, like the Prophet taught us. And when they asked me things such as, where did we study? Because they were really trying to figure out some things. And I told them, I said, look, when we study, man, we study wherever we want to study. Sometimes it may be in a park. Sometimes it may be in groups at various different homes or, you know, locations we may choose. It may be over the phone. It just all depends. And the reason I told them that, because that was the truth. That was the truth. So eventually, what these so-called FBI guys would do, they would send me back, and then they bring me back. You remember, it was like 3, maybe 4 times that week before they released me finally, that they came and got me out of my cell and they was questioning me things. And I'll never forget this. The second time they came and got me, they brought out a book about this huge, like 4 phone books, like wide. And it had nothing but Moorish information in it. And they asked me, did I know anything about, you know, any of these organizations, or did I know Prophet Noble Drew Ali, who is our leader, and all of this just crazy stuff. And I was like, let me see the book. I kid you not. When I looked in the book, every organization that claimed to be of the Moorish movement was in that book. All right. Whether it was by way of snippets that they copied off a website, whether it was off actual documents from a temple itself, whether it was they had the info. Just my point. They had the info. Now remember, these are 2 European guys. And I looked through it and I was like, wow. So some of the stuff I was looking at, I was familiar with regarding Prophet Noble Drew Ali's message, you know, with the Constitution. And I saw a lot of different different organizations that claim to be of the Moorish movement inside of this book. So my point is, they're watching, they're documenting, and they are taking notes. So even if you claim to be, you know, this high, you know, have high regard for Prophet Noble Drew Ali, and you don't enforce civics, they got you in the book as well. But you've been neutralized. You've been neutralized. That's the point. You've been neutralized.
I see my Moorish brothers here. In the early days, it was the Moors fighting the police. We came after them. Noble Drew Ali was one of the greatest men to come among us, so teaches the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Which is also why Drew Ali reminded the Moors before this thing even came, when this thing fell all apart, he says, if you don't do anything else, declare your nationality, be yourselves. Of course, you all know, those of you who know law, know that being yourself in law is in propria persona sui juris. All right? So when you see that, you know that that's being yourself.
I believe by the third day, they already figured out that I'm honorable and, you know, I'm spiritual with this Islam that I represent, etc., etc. So by the third day, I believe they were trying to get me to, at that time, it was a brother in Memphis that was really like claiming a lot of property, like, and he was doing his thing, like they couldn't stop him. So what they were trying to do at that time is they were trying to get his information from me, or did I know him? They was like, do you know anybody that's claiming a home? They wasn't even on the charges anymore, man. They were just strictly trying to figure out who was this guy. They was like, do you know anybody that's taking homes and, you know, doing this and putting liens on people and having all of these properties? And I told him, I was like, no, I don't know anything about that. You know, and it was like, are you sure? I was like, yeah, I'm sure. They was like, have you taken any homes? I was like, how can you take a home? You know, so I'm basically just reversing it on them. And they just asked me a lot of questions. Do you know this? Do you know this person? Do you know about this? Who is your leader? And I was like, well, we're all our own leaders. We're our own leaders. And they was like, well, we thought Prophet Noble Drew Ali was your leader. He's dead. I was like, what that got to do with it? You know, he brought a message, but we take the message and the message lives on, you know? So after them asking me, now this is how I know this is how the so-called FBI work. After I had no answers for them that they wanted to hear, something told me in the back of my mind to ask them, because I was ready to get out. I didn't want to talk to them anymore. You know, I was asking, you know, I wanted to actually get out of this place. So they continued, well, do you know this person? Do you know about this? What do you do here? What do you do this? What about Islam? What is this? They were just asking me a lot of questions. And again, I spoke to them under an intelligent tone. And I really wasn't giving them too much, but I just gave them the facts of everything that I wanted to give them. And eventually I asked them, I said, hey, you guys constantly want something from me. Damn, what are y'all gonna give me? You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to get out. Like, what are y'all gonna do for me? And the one European guy looked at the other European guy like this. He looked at him and they kind of like made a gesture and he was like, well, what do you want? I was like, I want to get out. You know, that's what I want. I want to go home. And they kind of like got back on the subject again about me knowing somebody. And I said, hold on, man, look, because I was tired of the bullshit by then. I was like, man, what can y'all want information from me, but y'all not telling me what y'all gonna do for me. So I'm testing them now. I'm like, what are y'all gonna do? Like, I wanna go. Man, he took a notebook and pad, slid it across the table with a pen, and said, whatever you want. So now I'm thinking in my mind, like, okay, well, hell, I want to go home. You know, I ain't thinking about nothing else. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, anything? And he was like, yeah, whatever you want. He slid the notebook. I'll never forget it. He slid the notebook across the table and the pen. And right then, even though he didn't say it was money or women or freedom, etc., I knew it to be a fact, because when I got out that week, the minute I got out, it was a brother that I used to deal with on the Moorish information that was neutralized. Now let me explain how he was neutralized. He saw online how all of the charges were beaten. He called me up and he was like, man, congratulations, I saw you beat the charges. And I was like, appreciate that. He was like, I wanted to meet up with you to see, can I get some of the information on Jump Drive to see how you fought it? Because at the beginning, this brother showed me a lot of different things, and I got to give him props for that and that only. So I was like kind of weary about it at first, but I was like, cool, you know, we can meet up, you know. So I took my gun, took my pistol, of course, because I really wasn't too sure about him, even though I didn't have any issues with him. But of course, I was strapped. I met up with him. I told him where I would meet up with him. It was at nighttime that night. And when we met up, I was sitting in the parking lot at this, it was like a big warehouse parking lot where they sell wholesale food, but it was no one in the parking lot. So I waited out there, I had my headlights on, and I saw headlights driving up. So I was like, I wonder if this him, you know. So I'm ready, you know, if anything go down, I'm ready, you know. That's just what type of mindset I have, you know. So when he pulled up, he was like, what's up, man? And he had his lights on in the truck. And I saw there wasn't visibly anyone in the truck with him. But I also noticed that he was in a 2013 black on black Range Rover. And I was thinking in my mind, like, damn, you know, that's a nice truck, you know, expensive truck, you know, brand new. And when he talked to me, this was a dead giveaway. He said, oh, did you talk to, and he mentioned both of the European guys' name that was interrogating me that called themselves the FBI. Okay? He mentioned their names. And from that point, I knew for a fact that he was neutralized. They paid him off. The guy not only had this 2013 Range Rover off the showroom floor, he was dressed nicely, and he had this big home in one of the expensive suburbs that he didn't have any of this stuff prior to me getting locked up, just I guess a few weeks prior to then. Okay? So what I'm saying is the infiltration is real. The infiltration is real. All right? It's real.
White folks were definitely afraid of Marcus Garvey, but they were more afraid of Noble Drew Ali, even though Marcus Garvey had 5 million or more followers.
Moorish leaders, historical, divine warning for the nations. Nations is plural. That's centerfold. The citizens of all national governments, according to their national constitution, are all of one family bearing one free national name. Those who fail to recognize the free national name of their constitutional government are classed as undesirables and are subject to all inferior names and abuses and mistreatments that the citizens care to bestow upon them. And it is a sin for any group of people to violate the national constitutional laws of a free national government and cling to the names and the principles that delude to slavery. I, the prophet, was prepared by the great God Allah to warn my people to repent from their sinful ways and go back to that state of mind of their forefathers' divine and national principles, that they will be law-abiders and receive their divine rights as citizens according to the free national constitution that was prepared for all free national beings. They are to claim their own free national name and religion. There is but one issue: for them to be recognized by this government and of the earth, and it comes only through the connection of the Moorish Divine National Movement, which is incorporated in this government and recognized by all other nations of the world. And through it they and their children can receive their divine rights unmolested by other citizens, that they can cast a free national ballot at the polls under the free national constitution of the state's government, and not under a granted privilege as has been the existing condition for many generations. You who doubt whether I, the prophet, and my principles are right for the redemption of my people, go to those who know law in the city hall and among the officials in your government, and ask them under an intelligent tone, and they will be glad to render you a favorable reply, for they are glad to see me bring you out of darkness into light. Money doesn't make the man. It is free national standards and power that make the man and a nation. The wealth of all national governments, gold and silver and commerce, belong to the citizens alone. And without your national citizenship by name and principles, you have no true wealth. And I am hereby calling on all true citizens that stand for a national free government and the enforcement of the Constitution to help me in my great missionary work, because I need all support from all true American citizens of the United States of America. Help me to save my people who have fallen from the constitutional laws of government. I am depending on your support to get them back to the constitutional fold again, that they will learn to love instead of hate, and will live according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, supporting our free national constitution of the United States of America. I love my people and have desire for their unity and mind back to their own national and divine standard, because day by day they have been violating the national and constitutional laws of their government by claiming names and principles that are unconstitutional. If Italians, Greeks, English, Chinese, Japanese, Turks, and Arabians are forced to proclaim their free national name and religion before the constitutional government of the United States of America, it is no more than right that the laws should be enforced upon all other American citizens alike. In all other governments, when a man is born and raised there and asks for his national descent name, and if he fails to give it, he is misused, imprisoned, or exiled. Any group of people that fail to answer up to the constitutional standards of law by name and principles, because to be a citizen of any government you must claim your national descent name, because they place their trust upon issues and names formed by their forefathers. The word Negro deludes in the Latin language to the word nigger, the same as the word color deludes to anything that is painted, varnished, and dyed. And every nation must bear a national descent name of their forefathers, because honoring thy mothers and thy fathers, your days will be lengthened upon the earth. These names have never been recognized by any true American citizens of this day. Through your national name, you are known and recognized by all nations of the earth, and are recognized by said national government in which they live. The 14th and 15th Amendment brought the North and South in unit, placing the Southerners, who were at that time without power, with the constitutional body of power. And at that time, 1865, the free national constitutional law that was enforced since 1774 declared all men equal and free. And if all men are declared by the free national constitution to be free and equal, since that constitution has never been changed, there is no need for the application of the 14th and 15th Amendments for the salvation of our people and citizens. So there is but one supreme issue for my people to use to redeem that which was lost, and that is through the above statements. Then the lion and the lamb can lie down together in yonder hills, and neither will be harmed, because love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice will be reigning in this land. In those days, the United States will be one of the greatest civilized and prosperous governments of the world. But if the above principles are not carried out by the citizens and my people in this government, The worst is yet to come, because the great God of the universe is not pleased with the works that are being performed in North America by my people, and this great sin must be removed from the land to save it from enormous earthquakes, diseases, etc. And I, the prophet, do hereby believe that the administration of the government being more wisely prepared by more genius citizens that believe in their free national constitution and laws, and through the help of such classes of citizens, I, the prophet, truly believe my people will find the true and divine way of their forefathers and learn to stop serving carnal customs and merely ideas of men that have never done them any good but have always harmed them. So I, the prophet, am hereby calling aloud with a divine plea to all true American citizens to help me to remove this great sin which has been committed and is being practiced by my people in the United States of America, because they know it is not the true and divine way, and without understanding they have fallen from the true light into utter darkness of sin, and there is not a nation on earth today that will recognize them socially, religiously, politically, or economically, etc., in their present condition of their endeavorment in which they themselves try to force upon a civilized world. They will not refrain from their sinful ways of action, and their deeds have brought Jim Crowism, segregation, and everything that brings harm to human beings on earth. And they fought the Southerner for all these great misuses. But I've traveled in the South and have examined conditions there, and it is the works of my people continuously practicing the things which bring dishonor, disgrace, and disrespect to any nation that lives the life. And I am hereby calling on all true American citizens for moral support and finance to help me in my great missionary work to bring my people out of darkness into marvelous light from the prophet. Now, you know, this was decades ago. This was even before they suspended the Constitution. So you got to look at the timeline.
Now, I got to go into an excerpt of the infiltration into the Moorish Science Temple. All right, it starts off like this. The following is an excerpt from the FBI's investigation report of 1940 throughout 1953. Now, this is for all of the Moors that try to ignore and act like the temples were not infiltrated. Okay, they were infiltrated because they're countering Prophet Noble Drew Ali's his message, and that's to enforce the American Constitution and to know that we are Moorish Americans in America. Okay, the Moorish Science Temple was organized in 1913 in Newark, New Jersey. The temple was investigated by the Federal Bureau of Investigation in 1953 for violation of the Selective Service Act of 1948 and for sedition. In September 1953, the Department of Justice concluded that prosecution for violation of the Selective Service Act was not warranted. A 1940 investigation was conducted to determine if the Moorish Science Temple of America was committing subversive activities by adhering to and spreading of Japanese propaganda. The investigation failed to substantiate that members were pro-Japanese. All right. Let's go into sedition, separation from, the incitement of resistance to or insurrection against lawful authority. It is necessary to make a correction, or rather a fact of distinction from that report, and for anyone who may not be clear. The old Canaanite temple, later the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, was created in 1913. The founder was Noble Drew Ali. There are 3,117 pages submitted by the various FBI branches in regards to their investigation across the country. I have gone through approximately 1,500 pages. After a while, it became redundant because the reports were compiled from all active FBI agencies across the country, and all of them, for instance, scanned or during that time utilized microfilm to archive the entire Circle 7 Holy Quran questionnaire, divine bylaws, and divine constitution. And again, that brings back a memory. When they brought out that big 4 phone book wide size notebook, whatever they had, it also had the Holy Quran in it and the divine laws, etc. I just remember from reading this. All right. What was gathered is of magnificent interest. The FBI was first under the impression that the temples were involved with the Japanese in a subversive act to take over the current government. One must keep in mind that the Japanese bombing of Pearl Harbor had just taken place, coupled with the fact that the Moorish Americans were stating they were Asiatic. This would be equivalent to us today making comments on the Iraq and Iran war and stating that we are Muslims who are active in Islam, or I self law am master. At some time during the reporting around 1944, they attached the teachings of the Moorish Science Temple to that Mahatma Gandhi, as Moors teach love as the first principle, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and they repeatedly said they are not to harm or kill anything as instructed in the Holy Quran, and this being one of the reasons they did not want to join the army. The FBI began arresting the Moors for failure to comply with the Selective Service Act. Now, this goes back to the Zodiac Constitution, us dealing with not being in their militaries and being basically, quote unquote, exempt from their military. Background information. At first, they threatened the formers of the organization of deceiving and taking money dues under false pretense, and as a confidence game, they threatened to prosecute them. This is before they, the FBI, were aware of just how many temples existed across the nation. At that time, so many were popping up. They were all over the activities of the Moorish Science Temples. Now this is after Noble Drew Ali passed form. One of the things they could not do was obtain a great deal of information about the Moorish Divine National Movement prior to his death. During the Prophet days, there did not exist a protocol of reporting names of the members, citizens, to any government reporting agency, including the county records. Okay? So during that time, if you had an issue, the issue was private. It was in the trust of the temple. And someone in the temple should represent you. Okay? That's how it was during that time. That's how it was supposed. That was the protocol. Now, the protocol was that which was just said. All right? Now, the temple itself was placed on the record, but all records and names of members were kept as records of the various temples. If a Moor were to have an encounter with the inferior courts or policy enforcers, policemen, then a Moorish consul would come to one's aid. Temples began popping up under the divided faction of leaders who claimed they were the rightful heir to the association. In fact, there were two, not one, but two who said they were reincarnated Drew Ali. Now, we all know that reincarnation is not done in a full-grown body, only a newborn. I am sure they were feeling the spirit of the prophet and got that confused, I guess. One of those claiming to be reincarnated was Noble Drew Ali's chauffeur, Stephen Gibbons L., and the other was Ira Johnson Bey from Pittsburgh. Now, Johnson Bey invaded Mealy L's office or home demanding recognition to be the new leader. Mealy L got beat up by the invasion. In fact, the description is that he was mauled. Then Johnson kidnapped Kirkman Bey, demanding the last will and testament of Noble Drew Ali. This led to Kirkman's wife telling the police that she thought her husband was being held in Johnson's house. The police went to Johnson's home and a shootout ensued. 2 policemen and 1 Moorish brother was killed. 63 Moors were arrested. Johnson was committed to an asylum as criminally insane. He died there. Gibbons was later apprehended after he had forced himself into Attorney Payne's home in search of Noble Drew Ali's papers. Gibbons was also sent to the insane asylum, where he spent several years. Later in 1941, he headed a temple named as Temple Number 1. There were 6 temples claiming they were Temple Number 1. I got into that for a reason, people. My point is this. The infiltration is real. The demarcation or division is real. The agenda is real with the European colonists, the European powers, the occupiers, particularly in North America. It is real. So while we sit back and fight one another, the Europeans win on various levels. They win on various levels. Okay? The resource, the land, the power. They have our women, the whole nine. And I will leave with this. Peace and love on my end. Peace and love on my end. Peace and love on my end.
Before you can have standing at law, the lack of it is called no judicio standi, which means you have no standing at law. In order to change that, you must be in your proper person, which is why Drew Ali said, be yourselves. But then there's so much information that had to be imparted to you before you could understand what that statement really meant. So he set up Old Canaanite Temple, Moorish Holy Temple of Science, but these were veiled because the Roman sons was not going to let this happen. Just like Wilson said, he told the prophet, he said, you give these niggers back Islam, that's like putting a pair of pants on a horse, and laughed at him. He said, however, I'll back you up, because that's his obligation. After all, he's a Mason. They know your history. They know their obligation to that Constitution, but they know, for the most part, because we're so dedicated that we didn't want it. That's why he was speaking with such confidence. You understand? In other words, you can come amongst us and sell us a God every two days. We'll build churches, mosques, synagogues, gold them down, jewels in the wall, have some guy walk in here with suitcases, you understand, talk about he's government and this and everything, and walk away with packs of money, and you think you've been blessed. The only reason why you're spiritual or you're lighter because your pockets is lighter. And everybody in the world knows that about us. You understand? Every civilized being on the planet, when they leave their mother, which is the nation, which is natal, that navel, that's your only birthmark. When they leave their mother, they're taught the truth about their natal responsibilities, their relationship to the world. And you have an obligation when you go out into the world to honor your mothers and your fathers. So you'll never see a Chinese, Japanese, Korean, any of the Asiatic brothers from the upper continent, Asia, come telling you they're talking about some light-skinned yellow rights. Why do they not do that? Because they're civilized human beings. They're part of the human family. They honor their mothers and fathers. They're not going to come here talking about, well, I'm going to the mall, get me a light-skinned black leather coat. They know that's fiction. But little boys and girls, even though they got big bodies, think that that's real. Think that the human family is crayons. And if you try to tell them different, they think you're trying to sell them some kind of religion. Why do they think like that? Because the sorcerers have done a good job.